Hello everybody, welcome back to another video by Jay Bowman. Today I'm looking again at one of my favourite synths, which is the Prologue by Korg, and it's the 16 voice version that I have here. And what I want to look at today is the question of modulation. Famously, the Prologue only has one LFO. So what I want to do is look at the LFO and then look at one potential additional source of modulation that might not be completely obvious, but is available on the Prologue, which is the Arpeggiator. So that's the way the video is going to go. I'm going to have a quick run through of the LFO. First, there's just a couple of features of the LFO that I'd like to just demonstrate. And then I'm going to look at the Arpeggiator and see how we can possibly use that to get some more experimental modulation types into patches using the Prologue. So that's the way the video is going to go. So first of all, I've just got an init patch with one sawtooth on VCO1. So let's have a look at the LFO here. So we have three target destinations. We have pitch, and I'll show you how that works. We have wave shape. And we have cutoff. So those are the only three destinations for the LFO. We have three wave shapes on the front panel. So we have sawtooth, we have triangle, and we have square. Now, using the shift function on the sawtooth, we have an additional wave shape. So rather than ramp down, which is what the sawtooth wave defaults to, if we use shift and use this knob here, so the intensity knob, you can hear that we've got an up ramp instead of a down ramp. So there's actually four wave shapes. And I think you might be able to invert the others too as well, but obviously as they're symmetrical, it doesn't have such an effect. So we have some further options in the menu. So if I go into the menu, button 5, so we can have it so that the LFO targets all of the sound sources, so VCO1, VCO2, and the multi-engine. So I'm going to put it onto, I'm going to put the multi-engine onto noise, and I'm going to use the shape destination to show how that works. So you can hear that it's modulating the wave shape of both VCO1, VCO2, and the noise. So in terms of the noise, it's modulating the high pass filter there on the noise source. So we can change that so it's just modulating VCOs 1 and 2. So there you can hear that the noise was not being affected. So you can have it so it just modulates VCO2. Or you can have it so that it just affects the multi-engine. Okay, so I'll put it back so it's targeting all three. So the next option is key sync. So with key sync on, and what I'll do is I'll change it to cutoff because that makes it a bit more obvious. So yeah, so with key sync on, the phase of the LFO is triggered each time I press the key. So you can hear it's modulating the filter cutoff and it's triggering each time I press the key. Almost like an envelope. If I turn key sync off, then we have a free running LFO, and the phase is not dependent on when I press the key. So different options are more appropriate depending on what effect you're going for there. So the last option I'm going to show is voice sync. So with voice sync on, you only have one LFO that's affecting all 16 voices. So you can hear all of the voices are in sync. It doesn't matter when I press the key, it just re-triggers the single LFO for all 16 voices. Now if I turn voice sync off, you can hear that at that point we actually have 16 independent LFOs. Each of which is being triggered when I press the key. Now what you can do to have, if you want to kind of make the pitch, let's say of each of the 16 voices go in and out of tune at different times or in different phases, then you can take off the voice sync and also take off key sync. So then you have essentially 16 free-running LFOs that are each modulating the pitch, for example. I'm not going to demonstrate that, but that's quite a nice effect if you want to make the Prologue sound more vintage in terms of pitch. So that is the LFO. And so far, so limited. So the last thing I'll demonstrate is just the rate ranges here. So you've got a BPM rate for tracking the BPM of the arpeggiator or incoming MIDI. Then you've got a slow rate. So I'll show how that goes from the slowest setting up to the fastest setting. So you hear that it starts very slow. And then goes up to just about audio rate when you're in the slow range. Now if you switch to the fast range, the slowest rate setting there is again pretty slow, but it goes incredibly fast into audio rates, which I'll demonstrate now. So that's the LFO. And so we only have one LFO. We have two envelope generators. We have the amp envelope generator and this envelope generator, which should be named filter envelope generator, but actually this envelope also works for the pitch envelope, which is over here in this corner of the synth. So if I turn down the LFO, so it's having no effect. I've just shifted the shape of the sawtooth so it's the standard shape. And let's have a look at the pitch envelope generator. So it goes up to 4 octaves above the starting pitch. Now, unfortunately, you can't loop the envelopes on the Prologue, but you do have this arpeggiator, which actually goes into very fast rates. So I've already set this up because it's a bit tedious changing the tempo on the arpeggiator, unfortunately. You have to use 2 hands. You have to hold down the tempo button while you twist the knob, and it's a bit of a slow process. But eventually you can get the tempo up to 600 BPM. So let's hear what that sounds like. So if I use the pitch envelope with the arpeggiator going at that rate, then we should be modulating the pitch at audio rates. So let's have a play with that, depending on what the envelope settings are here, because this envelope generator affects both the filter and the pitch envelope. We can get some different settings. So I'll have a little play with that and see what sounds I can dig out. I'll turn on the reverb. So hopefully you can hear there's some potential there if you play around with it. Another feature that's worth checking out is that in the menu you can tweak both the rate of the arpeggiator. So at the moment it's going at 16th notes at 600 BPMs. If I increase the rate, it's got somewhat of a cone filter type of sound. I'll reduce the rate. And of course, as well as the pitch generator, we've also got the filter envelope generator. So let's have a play with that using the arpeggiator setting. So that's the arpeggiator. You're free, of course, to mix the arpeggiator with the LFO. Now, what we don't want is the LFO to be key synced, because it'll just be matching what the pitch and filter envelope are doing there. So we'll turn key sync off. So now we're just hearing the LFO on its own. If we get it to interact with the filter envelope, that's quite an interesting effect. Let's try and mix in some pitch envelope as well, see if that has any effect. So I'm applying negative pitch envelope now. Combine it with the LFO. So you can get some interesting effects from playing with the arpeggiator, playing with the LFOs at audio rates, and just tweaking the envelope shapes. So this is just the arpeggiator, not the LFO. I'll mix the LFO in. I'll turn the resonance down. So hopefully that's an interesting example of the kind of thing you can do with the arpeggiator running at audio rates, tweaking the ARP rate. There's a few things I didn't experiment with there. For example, you can change the gate length and that will have an impact on the sound. Obviously the interaction between the arpeggiator and the LFO and the envelope generator and the filter envelope generator, so the pitch envelope generator and the filter envelope generator, all of these interactions can lead to interesting sounds. I'd say they're more kind of experimental sounds. There were maybe a couple of sweet spots in there which, if you wanted to get something more melodic or harmonic, you could possibly dig something out, but mostly it sounds like this kind of experimentation is going to yield sound effects, noise, that kind of thing. But I think it gets you to some interesting places that you wouldn't necessarily expect from a one LFO polysynth. And bear in mind that also that's just using VCO1. It's not using the cross mod or the ring modulator, so modulating each VCO at audio rates with the other. And that's just an indication of the kind of playground that this synth is. You turn it on, it's very inviting to experiment with and to try and push it to places that you wouldn't necessarily expect it to go to. So that's all I'm going to look at in this video. Hopefully you found that interesting. If you have, please give me a like and a subscribe, and thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Goodbye.